Hello, hello, and welcome to the online live Mayochup review. Guys, I got a lot to say about this product. And this is going to be one of those episodes that's going to be like This American Life or Rachel Maddow, where I'm going to give you a lot of background information. So it's going to be a little bit of time before we get to the fireworks factory. Okay? So here's the product. Heinz Mayochup. As you can see, I've already had quite a bit of it. I'm not going to tell you what I thought of it until later. All right. So, let me tell you a little bit about this product. It caused quite a bit of a stir on the internet when they announced it. Heinz, this seems like mostly like a social media driven product for some crazy reason. Like Heinz, it seems based on what I can track down, it seems like this was a product that was released in Kuwait. And somebody in April or March put a picture of it on Facebook. And people were so excited that Mayochup existed. And then the Heinz Corporation in America was like, maybe we should release this. And so if you look at the Heinz Twitter account starting back like in March or April, there's a lot of like, hey, should we release this in America? And what happened was they said they had this online poll that said if they got 500,000 votes for releasing Mayochup in America, they would do it. And they did. I think they just barely got that number. So what happened then was that when they announced this, there was a ton of stuff online. And this was back in April, like a ton of the kind of complaining that Heinz had been saying they invented this sauce, when in fact the sauce had been around for nearly 100 years in various forms. I'll get to that in a second. But in any case, Heinz never said any of that. They basically said, this is the sauce you've been enjoying for years, now in its own package. So they didn't do anything wrong in that. And they didn't claim to have invented this sauce. And then they also, like, Mayochup is a stupid name, I think. But again, this was decided online with a poll, and there were many, many better suggestions, including Ketcho, which I think one of you suggested, and Ketchonnaise, and it's kind of like, again, like that Mr. Show sketch with the mustard mayonnaise. There were many better suggestions. I don't know why they chose Mayochup, but they did, and again, it was kind of like a social media thing. I think this is mainly a stunt rather than a product that they're going to have around for a long time. Okay, so let me talk to you about this sauce. It's obviously it's a combination of mayonnaise and ketchup, basically. But there are dozens of other incarnations of this sauces, which ever since I started tweeting about this, I have been bombarded with people saying the two most proud constituencies of a sauce like this are people from Utah who are Utahns, where fry sauce was invented. I'll get to that in a second. And also people from Argentina, where the sauce was invented many years earlier in the name of golf sauce. I'll also get to that in a second. But let me show you, like, Heinz didn't claim to have invented this sauce. They just claimed it was something that you were going to like. And they, I guess, ignored the proud constituencies of these many other sauces, which I will show you right now. Hold on a second. Okay, so this is a picture. As you can see, this is the Mayochup from Kuwait. You can see the Arabic lettering there. This must have been the one that started the whole, all the mayhem. Okay, so but also let's say Heinz has a lot of other, like this sauce, Heinz American sauce. This is from Germany, and basically this is like Thousand Island dressing. It's not Mayochup, but it seems like it's related to that. Now Mayochup, here's a version of the sauce from Austria and Germany, which, as you can see, says ketchup and mayonnaise, okay? And it comes in like a toothpaste-like tube, okay? And then, also, this sauce, this is the sauce from Puerto Rico, where apparently it's very popular, and it's just called mayo ketchup. But I've seen online that people say it's like the national sauce of Puerto Rico or something like that. Okay, so here, but also in America we have this in a number of incarnations, like Freddy's, which, as you know, I love, has their own fry sauce, which you can get in the restaurants, also available in bottles. And even Famous Dave's Barbecue has their own fry sauce. And this is the one I see most commonly on shelves, is just the Stevens fry sauce. Again, the fry sauce I think has a little bit, is a little bit different than Mayochup, but let's get back to that now. All right. So, long history of this product being around, and most prominently in Utah, where it was called fry sauce. It apparently was developed in the 50s by the guy who was the founder of the Arctic Circle fast food chain. But also in the 1920s, apparently, it was developed in Argentina, where it was called golf sauce because it was invented on a golf course by a Nobel Prize-winning chemist, although it was not. This wasn't what he won the Nobel Prize for. And it had a little bit more of a tang, I gather, with some spices, some South American spices. Anyway, those are the two most prominent antecedents of fry sauce or Mayochup. Now, I'm going to argue that fry sauce is not exactly the same as Mayochup. Mayochup is really just kind of a lazy combination of mayonnaise and ketchup, okay? This is fry sauce, okay? Now, this is the one I showed you. This is the most, as far as I know, the most prominent manufacturer of fry sauce that you just buy on the shelves, okay? And then there's the homemade versions that many people have been making for years, including me. Okay, so this is what happens in my house. Is basically, see, I have these pretzels. Like at night, I have pretzels sometimes with some beer or whatever I'm drinking, and I sometimes like to dip them in something, and sometimes it's just mustard. I got these little cups, you see, and I make a mixture. I mean, sometimes it's just like whatever, spicy mustard or something, but sometimes I make a little bit of a sauce, which in many cases has been kind of a Mayochup, but not exactly what Heinz has released, as I will tell you. Another sauce that I make, which I know many of you are going to find repulsive, but actually is quite good, is Miracle Whip with sriracha, which is actually really fun. It's really delicious to dip pretzels and so forth in. Okay, so, but I've also been making, like many people for many years, kind of my own version of Mayochup, which has Heinz tomato ketchup and Best Foods mayonnaise. Now again, everybody who doesn't live in the West, this is Hellmann's mayonnaise. It's Best Foods in the West, just like Carl's Jr. is that out here, and it's Hardee's in the East. Anyway, so now that is a kind of, here's an example of that sauce. Now I made that sauce. I made this a few moments ago with just the Hellmann's and the Heinz ketchup. Okay, now let me try this here. That's quite good. It's nothing to write home about, but it is really enjoyable. I'm going to compare that to the Stevens fry sauce, which is not, you're going to see is a little more liquidy. Okay, so there's the Stevens fry sauce. Okay, now that, I'll put a pretzel in there. That's like my homemade concoction, but better. It obviously has some spices. I must have some garlic powder or something like that in there to make it a little bit tastier, okay? Now, the final bit of backstory before I get on to tasting the Mayochup, which, as you know, I've already tasted. There's been this thing, and you may have seen my video about it earlier this summer. There's been a giant battle in the mayonnaise world this year. I know, a giant battle in the mayonnaise world. Basically between the Best Foods / Hellmann's universe and the Heinz universe. Because they started crossing over into each other's territory. Best Foods released a ketchup, which you may have seen I reviewed a while ago. I said it was great, but the more it sat in my refrigerator, the more nauseating it got. So I didn't love it. Because it has this honey that kind of separated. It was weird. Okay, so then, but also at the same time, Heinz released a mayonnaise, which they've probably been manufacturing for decades, but they just released it nationally. It was fine. It wasn't as good as Best Foods. So my guess is that due to the social media furor over Mayochup and the photo that was posted from Kuwait, they were like, let's give this a shot. If we can get 500,000 votes as we did to release Mayochup in the U.S., we'll do it. And that's what happened. And I think they released it on a very limited basis because it took me a month to find this. And I know that I live in the sticks in Portland, Oregon, where we don't get a lot of fast food and snack food innovations, but I would have thought it would be available in just like a regular grocery store. I eventually found it at Walmart, but we didn't have it anywhere around here, and I don't think it's going to be around for long because again, it seems like more of a stunt. Anyway, now the Mayochup. Now this is what you're going to see. Look at that. The pretzels are salted. Okay, so now this is the thing. The Heinz Mayochup. It's not nearly as good as just the most rudimentary homemade stuff. It's actually not very good at all, and I'll tell you why. It's because of the texture of the mayonnaise. It's because of the texture of the whole thing. As opposed to, for instance, my homemade fry sauce, which is the Hellmann's mayonnaise, or the Stevens professionally made fry sauce. This has almost a foamy consistency, which is unpleasant. And I'll tell you, it's basically the thickness of the mayonnaise is kind of gross. It's like taking a sidebar here. Mayonnaise comes in many different forms. We have the standard, we have the freaky, and we have generally what is considered the two top ones based on all this mayonnaise stuff that you guys have been telling me for months. Okay, the Kewpie mayonnaise, which is a Japanese brand, which I believe they're bringing out in America. This is a small, weird bottle of it. And Duke's. Okay, now, I had never had Duke's until one of you guys, Benoba, sent me this like a month and a half ago, and I've been converted. Like, this is far and away the best mayonnaise I have ever had. It has this creamy consistency that just redefines creamy, okay? The Kewpie mayonnaise is very similar in terms of being just as creamy, but it's got a little bit more of an egg kind of flavor, which is really good, but is not what I necessarily want when I'm mixing it with ketchup or something like that. Okay, so I will show you, again, look at the weird thickness of this. Now, it's been sitting in this cup for several minutes, and it still hasn't settled. It's a little thick, and it's a little basically, like, I feel like the Heinz mayonnaise, which is the main component of this Mayochup, is like liquid styrofoam. It's like if they had like liquid styrofoam that they sprayed into aircraft for insulation. That's what the texture of Heinz mayonnaise would be like, and it is weird, and it doesn't feel creamy. It feels artificial in a strange way. Okay. Man. Okay. So again, also the flavor. I don't know what they did to like reduce the flavor in this, but like again, I don't love the texture. The flavor is also not very good. Okay. Let's just compare that to the Stevens fry sauce. Totally fine. It's not like it's going to win any awards or anything, but it's very serviceable. And this, my homemade fry sauce, which is literally just stirring best food mayonnaise with Heinz ketchup, beats all three of those. Now, I know there's professionally made fry sauces, and including the Argentinian Gulf sauce, the Utah fry sauce from Arctic Circle, that do transcend these. But I'm going to say, this is what my opinion of this Mayochup is. It is literally not as good as any comparable product. And furthermore, it's actually somewhat worse than just mixing ketchup and mayonnaise at home by yourself. Because of its strange texture and lack of flavor. I mean, like it doesn't have any spice or any tang that you normally find in a fried sauce. I find it barely acceptable, which is why I'm going to give Mayochup a D+. There you go. Thank you for tuning in for this nonsense. As always, I appreciate it. And I do, let me just say, brief plug, this really is great mayonnaise. Mayochup, I don't think it's long for this world. I think it was a stunt and it will be gone by the end of the year and you'll be lucky to find it in the remainder bins. I didn't love it. And thanks again for tuning in. Ta-ta.